64 duelists stepped into the arena, and only 5 are qualifying for Worlds. This is probably the futurist Nats that we've seen. Yeah, I know that was a terrible intro. Make sure you guys smash the elven crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out more on us content. Japan Nationals has come and gone. And, Purrely being the most represented deck out of Top Cut, I mean, let's be honest here. You shouldn't be surprised. The OCG loves this deck. It has been so far ahead of what feels like the rest of the meta that it's actually kind of crazy. Now, we also had 2 Rescue Ace decks in Top Cut. Wait, Robbie, we're going from 5 to 2 in Top 16? Yeah. We are, actually. That's a huge shift. Surprisingly enough, Rescue Ace did manage to cruise on in and get second place, which was really good. Unfortunately, the finals weren't an amazing sight to watch because, sometimes you just get ashed and you lose the game. There were 2 Runick stun players, even with Fountain limited to 1. Players still believe in this deck enough to carry it through to Top Cut, and I think that's pretty interesting. We also had 2 branded. I mean, with Fusion, or with Albaz Fusion, limited to 1 in the OCG, they're still playing this deck. That's hilarious. And then we only had 1 Labyrinth in Top 16, which is kind of interesting to say the least, because I figured that this deck, it looks so much better than it actually is, but okay. Tearlaments, of course, that deck's a mainstay in the metagame that actually had some success here too. We also had Phantom Knights actually make their way into Top 8, and I think that was one of the most shocking things I got the chance to see out of this event, was just the value that deck had. And then, I kid you not, Lightsworn showed up in Top 16 as well. And we also had Unchained as well making an appearance. So, I mean, overall, these are the best duelists in Japan at the current time that decided to come on into the meta and actually see what they could do. We're going to pass on over to Top Deck List. Ending our event is none other than the power of, you guessed it, Purrely. Now, hilariously enough, they are playing the 1 Gamma in here, and along with the rest of the sub package, which is pretty common. Actually, no, it's not actually that common. It's actually pretty crazy to see that actually was getting some play here. I see that we were main decking Red Reboot in here as well. We were going full steam ahead. And then post side deck down here, I do see that we are playing some Summon Limits, and we're actually playing a copy of Dimensional Fissure in here as well. Considering you only have to grind through 64 duelists at this stage, or rather 63 duelists to be able to climb to the top, this build feels very, very strongly able to fight, a majority of the meta. And let's be honest here at this stage. I mean, as much as, we look at Purrely and we're like, wow, you grind through with the extra deck options. Simple Nightingale was the MVP for what I saw for the match. Basically being able to set up and then win through time while the opponent can't actually out it. Yep, it was pretty disgusting. Next up is Rescue Ace. Now, we will be having this deck entering into the TCG here soon, so this will be a little bit of an idea of what you can expect to kind of see with this deck. Now, I do see here that we are playing some Dimension Shifters, Maxis, the standard, all the hand traps in the world. And the only reason why this deck feels like it's going to have issues is if you draw a majority of the bricks, or, you don't draw an optimized way to see through the option trees, you're going to have an issue. Now, the extra deck for this deck is by far, I think, one of the best options, because, you'll be able to toggle up. Now, this build's not doing the Mud Dragon shenanigans. They're just going to be able to set up and do the Heat Leo play, or, the recursion off of the Salaman Great Monster, if need be. So we've kind of gone a little bit further away from what we've seen, but this build, if it hadn't bricked, it had the chance to go first. So it definitely could have won, but unfortunately opened up double emergency, and no ability to have an additional monster do your thing with. Ugh. Next up is our Labyrinth player, who grinded all the way to 3rd place with the power of transaction rollback. Oh boy, they're maximizing on this card as a 3 of in this deck. And I will tell you, as much as I have seen this deck and all the transaction rollback shenanigans out of the OCG, it has been a wild ride. Now, we are also playing the fake number 1 down in the extra deck next to the Chaos Angel. That's just how many level 8s can you stack up on the field to be able to roll it on out to look at your opponent and go, hey, what are you doing? And yes, that is a Dark Barrier statue down there. Depending on how the meta kind of plays out here, you actually can kind of take advantage of that. That's not something that I necessarily thought we would be seeing anytime soon, but you know what? The fact that you are even able to take advantage of that is absolutely beautiful. Also, no Eradicator Epidemic Virus in the OCG because they don't need it. And then, of course, we have our next Purrely player here. All real things considered with, Purrely Innovations out here, these decks do tend to look pretty straightforward. Now, maximizing the triple leap, yeah, the fact that the new cat just allows you to go, oh, hey, I can suck up, set leap. Oh, okay, well, that's free real estate all day long. And, you could play Purrely in the deck, but I don't think there's enough reason to dedicate slots to Purrely. Like, the card's good, but we've now given enough support to Purrely at this point in time that I feel like doing too much more is going to tip the scales of the deck. You know what I mean? And that's not exactly something that we really want to see happen at the moment. So, overall, good list. I like what I'm seeing. The OCG gets a lot more advantage and draw power than the TCG version of the deck gets. Next up is our Tearlaments player, qualifying at 5th place. So they grinded up through the remainder of the bottom block here, which is pretty impressive. Now, the first thing I'm going to find actually kind of hilarious down here is they're citing a copy of Grass Looks Greener. And yes, they are playing a 41 card version of the deck. So before you're like, wait, why would they do that? It's a free ash bait. If your opponent goes first and, turbos 8, 9, 10 cards off the top of their deck, and you see the grass, well, that's still a mill for 8, 9, 10 cards out of your deck. So it's just a card that you can drop on your opponent and just not really care. You can go ahead and generate as much milling power as you can, see what you can, shave off, set up some fusion materials along the way. And I feel like that's incredibly good. Not something that, we can technically do here, but it's definitely one of those blowout cards you can do your thing. Outside of this, this tier list feels incredibly standard at this point. We've seen so much of this. Next up is our Phantom Knight Minkonko duelist here. Now, the first little thing I see down here is we are playing one of the new Animation Chronicle cards or something down here next to the Emergency Teleport. I'm not too sure about that. Pretty sure it's Warrior Support. They're also playing the Discount Phoenix Blade at home. Now, remember, the OCG does not have Divine Sword Phoenix Blade. That card just literally doesn't exist for them. They find like 19 billion reasons to get that card banned every single time it's relevant, and it is pretty hilarious. So outside of that, it's still classified as Phantom Knights, but this is essentially warrior good stuff. Turbo out the Rongo Reminiad. Even at this point in the format, Rongo Reminiad is a threatening metagame card that actually its presence is going to be an annoyance for the opponent. They're not going to have a good time trying to clean that up, and I perfectly understand. Like a 5-material Rongo, there's no Exceed Encores running around in side decks currently, so it's free real estate. Next up is our next Rescue Ace player. Wow, so we did manage to push a couple of these on in the top cut. Now, this one's playing the Mud Dragon package that we've seen talked about a couple of times here, where, the value that you get for the protection effect so that your set 4 package can actually resolve. Very, very important. It is the deck's win con. Even if you look at this deck, you're like, it's so fragile, it's set up as much advantage as you can. Yeah, that's the thing, all right? They actually designed a boss monster that, you set as much as you can, you look at your opponent and you go, well, you broke my board, you're genuinely better than me at that stage, and I do kind of agree with that. That's pretty much what it feels like at this stage, and I think that's fine to have things like that actually exist in the game. It's however much value that you can actually put into the meta and actually, have it physically work out for you. So I think that's a good thing. Next up is our next Purrely list here, and, I will say that these lists look pretty standard. Now, this build actually bulked down on desires with the one Pot of Prosperity. So in case you do see the Pot of Prosperity, obviously you can't do desires, but you can see the desires. You can go ahead and shave off some extra cards. Basically, it's the old thing of, you do full Salaman, great combo, filter through all of your option trees, deck thin out the one-ofs or something, and then go ahead and do your thing. I think that the advantage that you get from that can actually be worth it. And then, of course, you do see Red Reboot here coming in as another card to protect the field. The problem that this deck, has to run through is traps, and if it sees the Red Reboot, it literally takes care of it. And that's... They literally made the deck's greatest weakness into one of its greatest strengths here because of the fact that they still have Red Reboot. Crazy to me. And then we have, alright, so we have some Runick stuff out here. This creeped on into the top cut, top 16, I believe. And the reason why I wanted to show some of this stuff is I personally like the little innovations they have. Now, obviously, they have triple card demise, but they also have the field spill limited to 1, which means they can't exactly cheese out, some of the more particular broken things that this deck can do. Now, what I find interesting is at this stage in the format, also with only one skill drain, they don't get the chance to do all the crazy stuff. They're also citing the Exceed Encores down there, which you're definitely going to need if Purrely continues to take over. You need as many options to clean up the meta as you possibly can. And then, of course, Sphere modes as well. Inspector Borders giving you the chance to go second as well. Your entire side deck is basically how many good cards can we filter on into this to make sure that we can actually play the game before things kind of get a little bit more out of hand. And I think that's a good thing. You do need ways to be able to play and control the game. And then we have our Unchained list here. I also wanted to go ahead and include this here. With Unchained coming to the TCG here, I know a lot of people are like, ooh, what kind of options can we do? The OCG loves playing Tour Guide in this deck. Tour Guide is a free extender for the deck. It gives the deck the chance to kind of take off, and, it turns into, the Link 2 that starts full combo. Being able to toggle up into the bigger boss monster value for zero reason whatsoever is kind of insane to me at the end of the day. So I think that's something that you definitely want to keep an eye on out here and just kind of see, what you can adapt from this. Obviously, no Red Reboot has been shown like 95% of this video, but must be nice. So what do you guys think about the breakdown out of Japan Nationals? Please leave a comment down below. Tell me what you guys think. I'll see your beautiful faces back here later today, guys. Peace out. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.